Welcome back to Infidelity Tales Lab. We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The cracks begin to show. Mark Shin stared at his computer screen, lines of code blurring together as voices from the neighboring cubicles droned on. Another day at InnovTech, another project deadline looming. He rubbed his tired eyes, the familiar ache in his shoulders a reminder of another late night at the office. His phone buzzed. Brenda's message glowed on the screen. "We need to talk about the credit card statement." Again, Mark's jaw tightened. He'd spent an extra $100 on guitar strings and a new capo last month. $100 out of his own salary. Yet here she was, monitoring his spending like a hawk. The day dragged on until 6 p.m. when Mark finally packed up his laptop. The drive home felt longer than usual, his mind drifting to the mobile app he'd been developing in secret. It was almost ready for beta testing, a social platform for musicians to collaborate remotely. He'd poured his heart into it for the past year, working late into the night while Brenda attended her networking events. The house was dark when he arrived. Brenda's Tesla wasn't in the driveway. Mark checked his watch, 6:45 p.m. Another late night at the office for the marketing executive. He heated up leftover pasta and settled on the couch with his guitar, strumming quietly. The melody he'd been working on flowed naturally, his fingers dancing across the strings. Music had always been his escape, his true passion. But Brenda had dismissed it as a hobby, something that wouldn't pay the bills. The front door opened at 8:30 p.m. Brenda strode in, her high heels clicking against the floor. Her designer suit was immaculate, her makeup perfect despite the late hour. "Really, Mark? Playing guitar again?" She set her laptop bag down with more force than necessary. "Did you even look at the credit card statement I sent you?" Mark set his guitar aside. "Hello to you too, Brenda." "Yes, I saw it. I spent $100 on my own hobby using my own salary." "That's not the point." Brenda's voice carried that edge he'd grown to hate. "We're supposed to be saving for our future. You're still in the same position you were in 3 years ago, while everyone around you is moving up. Do you know how that makes me look? How it makes you look?" Mark stood up, his height advantage doing nothing to intimidate his wife. "Is that all you care about? Don't turn this around on me." Brenda pulled out her phone, tapping aggressively. "Look at this. Thompson's husband just made partner at his law firm. Sarah's wife just launched her second startup. And you? You're still writing code in a cubicle, playing guitar like a teenager." The words hit harder than she probably intended. Mark's hands curled into fists, then relaxed. "I'm working on something. A project that could change everything." "Oh, please." Brenda rolled her eyes. "Not that app again. Wake up, Mark. You're not a startup founder. You're not an entrepreneur. You're a mid-level programmer who can't even get promoted to team lead." She stormed upstairs, leaving Mark standing in the living room. The guitar lay silent on the couch, its strings still vibrating from his earlier playing. Across town, in a trendy wine bar, Brenda sat across from her best friend Chloe, swirling her third glass of Cabernet. "You should give him a break," Chloe said, her expression concerned. "Mark's a good guy. A good guy doesn't equal a good husband." Brenda's lipstick left a perfect imprint on the wine glass. "I need more, Chloe. I deserve more. Is that why you're seeing Ethan?" Brenda's eyes darted around the bar, but no one was paying attention to their conversation. "Ethan understands ambition. He knows what it takes to succeed. Did you know he closed 3 major accounts last month? And the fact that he's 10 years younger than Mark has nothing to do with it. He's mature for his age." Brenda's phone lit up with a message. A smile played across her lips as she read it. "That's him, isn't it?" Chloe shook her head. "You're playing with fire, Brenda. Mark doesn't deserve this. Mark doesn't deserve me." Brenda stood up, gathering her purse. "I have to go. Ethan's waiting." Back at home, Mark sat in his home office, the glow of multiple monitors illuminating his face. His app's code filled the screens, but his mind was elsewhere. A notification popped up, an email from a law firm. "Dear Mr. Chun, we regret to inform you of the passing of your uncle, James Chun." Mark blinked, trying to remember Uncle James. They'd met only a handful of times when Mark was younger. The old man had been eccentric, a self-made millionaire who'd never married. As his sole surviving relative, you are the beneficiary of his estate, valued at approximately $10 million. The numbers didn't register at first. Mark read the email 3 times before it sank in. $10 million. The solution to everything and nothing all at once. He reached for his phone to call Brenda, then stopped. Her words from earlier echoed in his mind. You're not an entrepreneur. His hand dropped to his side. The next morning, Mark walked into Innovtech with a different energy. He headed straight to his manager's office. I quit, he said, placing his resignation letter on the desk. His manager, a balding man who'd passed him over for promotion twice, gaped at him. Mark, let's not be hasty. We can discuss a raise. No discussion needed. Mark turned and walked out, feeling lighter than he had in years. He spent the day cleaning out his desk, ignoring the curious glances from his coworkers. His phone buzzed repeatedly, Brenda calling. He let it go to voicemail. That evening, he prepared a special dinner. Candles, wine, Brenda's favorite pasta dish. One last chance to save what they had. She arrived at 9 p.m., her face flushed, hair slightly disheveled. Where have you been? Mark asked, though he already suspected the answer. Working late. Big presentation tomorrow. Brenda's eyes fell on the elaborate dinner setup. What's all this? We need to talk. Mark pulled out a chair for her. I quit my job today. Brenda froze. You what? I quit. I'm going to focus on my app full-time. I have a good feeling about. Are you insane? Brenda's voice rose to a shout. You quit your job? Without discussing it with me? What is wrong with you? I was trying to tell you. I can't believe this. Brenda paced the kitchen, her heels striking the floor like hammer blows. I can't afford to support a jobless person anymore. I'm not paying your damn bills. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and irretrievable. Mark stood very still, his expression hardening into something Brenda had never seen before. Get out, he said quietly. What? Get out. His voice remained steady, but his eyes blazed. Pack a bag and leave. Now. You can't. I said now. The volume of his voice made her jump. And while you're at it, tell Ethan I said hello. The color drained from Brenda's face. Without another word, she turned and fled upstairs. 20 minutes later, she was gone, the front door slamming behind her. Good. Mark's voice was cold, calculating. I want to know everything about Innovtech's financial situation. Their vulnerabilities, their weak points. Mr. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Planning a hostile takeover? Planning justice? Mark's smile didn't reach his eyes. Brenda's not the only one who understands ambition. As Mark left the lawyer's office, his phone buzzed with messages from Brenda. He deleted them without reading them. The Mark she knew, the passive, accommodating husband, was dead. In his place stood a man with $10 million and a score to settle. He drove to a high-end men's clothing store, where a tailor fitted him for custom suits. Next was a luxury car dealership. By sunset, he had the keys to a black Mercedes-AMG GT. That night, in his home office, Mark pulled up Innovtech's financial records. The company was struggling, its stock price falling. Perfect. He opened his laptop and began to type, lines of code flowing faster than ever before. His app would wait. He had a new project now. Across town, Brenda lay in Ethan's bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone showed no response from Mark, no reaction to her messages. He'll calm down, Ethan said, pulling her close. Men like him always do. They're weak that way. Brenda wasn't so sure. Something had changed in Mark's eyes when she'd mentioned the bills. Something had broken, or perhaps something had awoken. She didn't sleep that night, haunted by the memory of Mark's expression. For the first time in their marriage, she felt afraid. Not of him, exactly, but of what he might become. Little did she know, in his home office, Mark was already becoming that very thing. His computer screens glowed with financial data, corporate structures, and acquisition strategies. The inheritance had given him power, but Brenda's betrayal had given him purpose. Mr. Harrison's words echoed in his mind. Money is a weapon, Mr. Chun. It's all about how you choose to use it. Mark knew exactly how he would use it. The guitar sat untouched in the corner, gathering dust. Music could wait. First, he had a company to buy, a wife to destroy, and a young, ambitious salesman to break. The old Mark was dead. The new one had 10 million reasons to make them pay. Chapter 2. The Discovery and the Catalyst. The contractors arrived at dawn, their trucks lining the quiet suburban street. Mark watched from his new home office as they began transforming his house. The old furniture, the couch where he and Brenda had spent countless evenings, the dining table where they'd shared meals, all of it went into dumpsters. Gut it all, he instructed the foreman. I want everything modern. Smart home systems, new fixtures, the works. The foreman nodded, already typing estimates into his tablet. It'll take about a week, Mr. Chun. Make it 5 days. Money's no object. While the workers demolished his old life, Mark orchestrated his revenge from a luxury hotel suite. His laptop displayed Innovtech's complete financial history, courtesy of Mr. Harrison's connections. The company had been mismanaged for years, its stock price vulnerable to a takeover. Through a series of shell companies, Mark began buying shares. Small amounts at first, then larger blocks as the week progressed. The market didn't notice, just another institutional investor taking positions. On day 4 of the renovations, his phone rang. Mr. Harrison. It's done, the lawyer said. 51% ownership. Innovtech is yours. Mark ended the call and opened his email. A message from Ethan Parker sat in his inbox. A sales report from the previous quarter. Mark's lips curved into a smile as he typed his response. Meeting in my office tomorrow. 9 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. He copied Brenda's email address in the CC field, then hit send. The next morning, Mark stood in his newly renovated home, surveying the transformation. Gone were the warm colors Brenda had chosen, replaced by sleek grays and blacks. Glass, steel, and technology dominated every room. A car door slammed outside. Mark moved to the window, watching as Brenda emerged from her Tesla. Ethan followed, his sales team's swagger notably diminished. The doorbell rang. Mark waited, letting them stew for a full minute before opening the door. Brenda's eyes widened as she took in his appearance. The ill-fitting khakis and polo shirts were gone, replaced by a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His posture had changed too. No more slouching, no more deference. Come in, he said, his voice carrying none of its former warmth. They followed him into the transformed living room. Brenda's gasp was audible as she saw what he'd done to their home. Mark, what? She began. Mr. Chun, he corrected her. And I believe you're here to collect your belongings, Mrs. Chun. Though I'm curious why you brought a subordinate with you. Ethan's face went pale. Subordinate? Oh, did I forget to mention? Mark's smile was razor sharp. I acquired Innovtech last week. I'm your new boss, Mr. Parker. Both of yours, actually. Brenda grabbed Ethan's arm. That's impossible. You quit. You were unemployed. I quit being an employee. Mark walked to the bar and poured himself a scotch. I never quit working. Fascinating company, Innovtech. Terrible management, declining stock price, vulnerable to acquisition. Almost like someone wanted it to fail. He turned to Ethan, whose swagger had completely evaporated. Your sales numbers are impressive, Mr. Parker. Creative accounting can work wonders, can it? I don't know what you're talking about, Ethan stammered. No. Mark pulled out his phone and began reading. 3 major accounts closed last month. Except 2 of them don't exist, and the third is paying half what you reported. Did you think nobody would check? Brenda stepped forward. Mark, stop this. Whatever game you're playing. Game? His voice cracked like a whip. You think this is a game? You humiliated me. Both of you. You thought I was weak, passive, a failure. Tell me, Brenda, how does it feel to know you were sleeping with a fraud? How did you, Ethan began? How did I buy the company? How did I know about your fake accounts? How did I know about your little affair? Mark's laugh was cold. Money, Mr. Parker. $10 million of it, to be exact. Amazing what people will tell you when you have the means to make it worth their while. He walked to his desk and pressed a button. A screen descended from the ceiling, displaying financial records, email exchanges, hotel receipts. 6 months, he said quietly. 6 months you've been sleeping with my wife, planning your rise through the company, using her connections, her influence. And you, Brenda, you thought he loved you? He was using you to get ahead, just like you used me for stability while you chased your ambitions. Brenda's face had lost all color. You're not the man I married. No, Mark agreed. That man was weak. He loved you. He would have forgiven you. He drained his scotch. I killed him the night you walked out. The night you said you wouldn't pay my bills. What do you want? Ethan asked, his voice barely a whisper. What? I want you to suffer. Both of you. But professionally, of course. Mark's smile returned. Mr. Parker, you're being demoted to junior sales associate. Your office is now a cubicle on the 3rd floor. Your salary is cut by 60%. You can't. I can. I own the company. Mark turned to Brenda. As for you, my dear wife, your belongings are in storage. Unit 147 at Safe Store. The code is our wedding date, though I doubt you remember it. Brenda's hands trembled as she gripped her purse. This isn't over. Oh, it's just beginning. Mark walked to the door and opened it. Chapter 3, Assembling the Team. David Wu's apartment was exactly what Mark expected from a genius hacker. Organized chaos. Multiple monitors displayed scrolling code, while circuit boards and computer parts littered every surface. You want me to do what? David pushed his glasses up his nose, staring at the number Mark had written on a piece of paper. Help me destroy the people who betrayed me. Mark handed David a USB drive. This contains everything I have on Innovtech's systems. I need someone who can navigate them. Creatively, David whistled as he plugged in the drive. This is heavy stuff, Mark. We're talking corporate espionage territory. You sure about this? Remember when we were in college, and that professor tried to fail you for challenging his theories? Mark sat on the only clear spot on David's couch. You didn't back down. You proved him wrong, and he resigned in disgrace. That was different, but David was already typing, his fingers flying across the keyboard. That was about truth. This is about revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. Mark pulled out his phone, showing David a photo of Brenda and Ethan together. They thought I was weak. They used me, humiliated me. Now they'll learn what happens to people who underestimate me. David studied his old friend's face. Gone was the shy programmer who'd helped him debug code during all-night study sessions. In his place sat a man of steel and shadow. I'm in, David said finally. But we'll need help. Someone who can gather intelligence the old-fashioned way. Mark smiled. Already handled. She should be here any minute. The doorbell rang. David opened it to reveal Sarah Chun, no relation to Mark, a former private investigator turned corporate security consultant. Her black suit was impeccable, her expression professionally neutral. Mark told me what happened, she said, stepping inside. I've already started preliminary surveillance. Your wife's not as discreet as she thinks. She pulled out a tablet, displaying photos of Brenda and Ethan at various locations, restaurants, hotels, his apartment building. They're getting sloppy, Sarah continued. Ethan's been talking to headhunters. He knows his position at Innovtech is vulnerable now that you're in charge. Let him try to leave, Mark said coldly. His fraudulent sales records will follow him everywhere. No company will touch him once I'm done. David whistled again as he scrolled through Innovtech's financial records. Man, this Ethan guy really cooked the books. Look at these sales figures. Half of these clients don't exist. Can you prove it? Mark asked. Give me 48 hours. David cracked his knuckles. I'll create a trail so clear even a first-year auditor could follow it. Sarah pulled up another file on her tablet. There's more. Brenda's been embezzling from her marketing budget. Small amounts, but it adds up. She's been funding a secret account. Mark's expression darkened. Our prenup has an infidelity clause. Once we have everything documented, Mr. Harrison will handle the divorce proceedings. Speaking of Harrison, Sarah said, he's clean. I ran a background check. He genuinely wants to help you take them down. Something about his own wife leaving him for his law partner 20 years ago. The next few hours were spent planning. David would handle the technical aspects, monitoring communications, gathering digital evidence. Sarah would manage physical surveillance and background investigations. Mark would coordinate everything from his position as Innovtech's new owner. Remember, Mark instructed as they finalized their plans. Nothing illegal. Everything we do has to be technically legitimate. I want them destroyed, but I want it done properly. Later that night, in his renovated home office, Mark reviewed the preliminary reports from his team. David had already uncovered a pattern of financial manipulation in Ethan's department. Sarah had documented 17 separate meetings between Brenda and Ethan that couldn't be explained by work requirements. His phone buzzed, a text from Mr. Harrison. Papers are ready. Meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. to discuss strategy. Mark typed a quick acknowledgement, then turned back to his computer. On the screen, security camera footage showed Brenda entering a high-end restaurant. Moments later, Ethan arrived through a different entrance. Amateur, Mark muttered, forwarding the footage to Sarah for their documentation. His personal email pinged, a message from Innovtech's HR department confirming Ethan's demotion. Mark had timed it perfectly. The news would hit just as Ethan was trying to impress Brenda with an expensive dinner. Another email arrived, this one from David. Found something interesting in Ethan's work laptop. He's been planning this for months. Use Brenda to get inside information on company strategies. Have proof he leaked confidential data to competitors. Mark's response was brief. Document everything. Send it to Harrison. The pieces were falling into place. Soon, very soon, they would spring the trap. But first, there was one more move to make. He opened his contacts and dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Hello. Chloe's voice was cautious. It's Mark. I need to know something. Did you know about Brenda and Ethan? A long pause. Yes, she finally admitted. I tried to talk her out of it. I'm so sorry, Mark. Don't be. You're about to witness something extraordinary. He ended the call before she could respond. The next morning, Mark met with Mr. Harrison in the lawyer's wood-paneled office. The divorce papers are ready, Harrison said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. The evidence of infidelity is overwhelming. With the prenup clause, she won't get a penny. Good. Mark flipped through the documents. What about the corporate angle? Harrison's smile was predatory. Even better. The SEC would be very interested in Mr. Parker's creative accounting. One anonymous tip, and his career is over. Not yet, Mark said. I want him to suffer first. Let him think he can salvage his career. Then we'll pull the rug out from under him. You've changed, Mark. Harrison leaned back in his chair. The man who first walked into my office would never have been this ruthless. That man was a fool who trusted too easily. Mark signed the last document with a flourish. This man knows better. Back at Innovtech, Mark watched through the security cameras as Ethan moved his belongings to his new cubicle. The former star salesman's shoulders were slumped, his designer's suit wrinkled. Brenda had been calling all morning. Mark let each call go to voicemail, imagining her frustration growing with each unanswered ring. David's voice came through his earpiece. She's in the parking lot. Want me to let her in? No. Mark stood at his office window, watching Brenda's Tesla circle the lot. Let her wait. She'll get the message eventually. Sarah's voice joined the conversation. Ethan's accessing job search websites from his work computer. Want me to block his access? Let him try. Mark's smile was cold. Every application he sends will include an anonymous tip about his fraudulent sales records. He just doesn't know it yet. The sun set on Mark's first week as Innovtech's owner. In his home office, he reviewed the day's reports. David had compiled a comprehensive record of Ethan's financial manipulations. Sarah had photographed every secret meeting between Brenda and Ethan. A notification popped up on his screen. Brenda had posted on social media a carefully worded message about new beginnings and finding your true self. Mark's laugh held no humor. Let her think she was in control of the narrative. Soon, very soon, her carefully constructed world would crumble. He opened his safe and removed his uncle's pocket watch, the only inheritance he'd kept besides the money. The old man had written him a letter, found among his effects. Power isn't about money, nephew. It's about patience, planning, and the willingness to do what others won't. Use it wisely. Mark closed the safe, his resolve hardening. He'd been patient. He'd planned meticulously. Now it was time to show them exactly what he was willing to do. The first act of his revenge was complete. The players were in position, the trap was set, and his enemies were already beginning to feel the noose tightening. Let them worry. Let them wonder. The real pain hadn't even begun. Chapter 4. The Noose Around Ethan. The Innovtech security team burst into Ethan's cubicle at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Their presence drew immediate attention from nearby employees, who pretended to work while watching the scene unfold. Mr. Parker, the head of security, said, "We need you to step away from your computer. Now." Ethan's fingers froze over his keyboard. On his screen, a half-written email to a competitor remained unsent. "What's this about?" "A critical security breach has been detected from your workstation." The security chief nodded to his team, who began disconnecting Ethan's computer. "All your devices are being confiscated for investigation." From his office on the top floor, Mark watched the scene through security cameras. David's voice came through his earpiece. He took the bait. "Try to access the fake server I set up. The breach has his digital signature all over it." "Good." Mark pressed a button on his desk. "Send in Detective Miller." The detective arrived moments later, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he introduced himself to Ethan. "Mr. Parker, we need to discuss some irregularities in Innovtech's financial records." Ethan's confident facade cracked. "I want my lawyer." "Of course." Detective Miller pulled out his notebook. "You might want to call your girlfriend, too. Mrs. Chim might be interested in what we've found." The color drained from Ethan's face. He fumbled for his phone, dialing Brenda's number with trembling fingers. In her downtown apartment, Brenda was preparing for a client meeting when her phone rang. Seeing Ethan's name, she answered immediately. "They're investigating me," he blurted before she could speak. "The police are here. They know about the sales reports, the security breach, everything." Brenda sat down heavily. "What security breach?" "I don't know. They're saying I accessed restricted servers, leaked company data." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Brenda, they have proof. Digital signatures, timestamps, everything." "Stay calm." Brenda's mind raced. "Don't say anything until your lawyer arrives. I'll figure something out." She ended the call and immediately dialed another number. "Chloe, I need your help. It's about Ethan." "I can't help you, Brenda." Chloe's voice was cold. "Mark showed me everything. The affair, the fraud, all of it. You made your choices." "Mark?" Brenda's blood ran cold. "What does he have to do with this? He owns the company now, remember? Did you really think he wouldn't find out about Ethan's fake accounts? The embezzled marketing funds?" Brenda's hand tightened on her phone. "How do you know about that?" "Everyone knows now. Check your email." Brenda opened her laptop. Her inbox was flooded with messages from clients, colleagues, and friends. Each one contained the same attachment: a detailed report of financial irregularities at Innovtech, with her name featured prominently. Back at Innovtech, Detective Miller was building his case. "Mr. Parker, let's talk about these client accounts you claim to have secured. Specifically, these 3 from last month." Ethan glanced at his lawyer, who nodded. "Those were legitimate deals." "Really?" Miller opened a folder. "Because 2 of these companies don't exist, and the third claims they never signed any contract with Innovtech. Care to explain? There must be some mistake." "Oh, there's definitely a mistake." Miller laid out more documents. Several $1 million worth of mistakes, in fact. And that's before we get to the data breach. In his office, Mark reviewed the security footage with David and Sarah. "He's cracking," Sarah observed. "Look at his body language." "The evidence is overwhelming," David added. "Even his lawyer looks worried." Mark's phone buzzed, a message from Brenda. "I know what you're doing. This won't work." He showed the message to Sarah, who smirked. "Should I show her what else we found?" "Not yet." Mark typed a response. "I'm not doing anything. The police are investigating criminal behavior." "Or are you admitting to something?" Brenda's reply came instantly. "I want to meet. Face to face. Your choice of venue. Bring Ethan." The meeting was set for that evening at a quiet restaurant downtown. Mark arrived early, choosing a table with a clear view of both exits. David's voice came through his hidden earpiece. "Security cameras are working. Audio is clean." Brenda arrived first, alone. She'd dressed carefully. An expensive suit, full makeup, hair perfect. The armor of a woman preparing for battle. "Where's Ethan?" Mark asked as she sat down. "In custody." Brenda's voice trembled slightly. "They're holding him for questioning about the security breach." "What did you do, Mark?" "I didn't do anything." Ethan accessed restricted servers, tried to steal company data. The digital logs are quite clear. "This is insane. You're framing him." Mark leaned forward. "Am I? Did I fake his sales reports too?" Create imaginary clients? Forge his signature on fraudulent contracts? You're enjoying this, aren't you? Brenda's eyes narrowed. Destroying his career, humiliating us both. Enjoying it? No. Mark's voice was ice. This isn't about enjoyment. This is justice. You thought I was weak, remember? A burden. Someone who couldn't pay his own bills. I was angry when I said that. You were honest. Mark signaled the waiter for coffee. For the first time in our marriage, you showed me exactly who you are. A shallow, materialistic woman who married me for stability while she hunted for something better. That's not true. No. Mark pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Brenda's voice, speaking to Ethan. Mark's just a stepping stone. Once you make partner, we can be together openly. Brenda's face went white. You bugged us? I didn't have to. You had this conversation in Ethan's office. The one with company-owned security cameras. Mark's smile was cruel. Would you like to hear what else we recorded? Detective Miller's voice crackled in Mark's earpiece. Mr. Chun, we've extracted the data from Parker's devices. You're going to want to see this. Mark stood, dropping cash on the table. Enjoy your evening, Brenda. I have work to do. Mark, wait. Brenda grabbed his arm. What do you want? Money? I can. He shook off her hand. I have money. $10 million of it, remember? What I want is for you to watch everything you built crumble. Just like you watched me struggle without lifting a finger to help. Back at Innovtech, Detective Miller had laid out the evidence on a conference table. Ethan's lawyer looked increasingly worried as he reviewed the documents. These signatures are definitely his, the lawyer admitted. And the server logs? There's no way to explain this away. Ethan sat slumped in his chair, his designer's suit wrinkled, his confidence shattered. What are my options? Confess, Miller said bluntly. Cooperate. Maybe we can work out a deal. Mark watched through the one-way glass, David at his side. Should we show them what else we found? David asked. Not yet. Mark's phone buzzed with another message from Brenda. He ignored it. Let him stew overnight. Tomorrow, we reveal the offshore accounts. In a holding cell, Ethan paced back and forth. His lawyer had gone to negotiate with the prosecutor, leaving him alone with his thoughts. The events of the past few weeks played through his mind. The demotion, the investigation, the arrest. All of it traced back to Mark, the Mark he knew would never have been capable of this. That Mark had been passive, accommodating, weak. This Mark was something else entirely. A predator who had been waiting, watching, planning his revenge. Across town, Brenda sat in her apartment, surrounded by papers. Financial records, email printouts, bank statements, all documenting her own misdeeds. She'd been careful, or so she thought. But Mark had found everything. Her phone rang. Chloe again. Have you seen the news? Brenda opened her laptop. The local business news site's headline made her stomach drop. Innovtech sales executive arrested in fraud investigation. The article detailed Ethan's crimes in excruciating detail. Near the bottom was a quote from the company's new owner, Mark Chun. Innovtech has zero tolerance for financial fraud and corporate espionage. We will cooperate fully with law enforcement to ensure justice is served. A knock at her door made her jump. She opened it to find Detective Miller, flanked by two officers. Mrs. Chun, he said, holding up a warrant. We need to ask you some questions about certain financial transactions. In his home office, Mark watched the security feed from Brenda's building. He saw the police lead her to their car, saw her neighbors watching from their windows. David's voice came through the computer. Should I release the emails to the press? Not yet. Mark opened his safe, removing a file labeled contingency. First, we need to make sure she understands exactly how much evidence we have. The file contained photographs, bank statements, hotel receipts, 6 months of surveillance compiled by Sarah. Each document represented another nail in the coffin of Brenda's reputation. His phone rang. Mr. Harrison. The SEC is very interested in our findings, the lawyer said. They're opening a formal investigation into both Ethan and Brenda. Good. Mark closed the file. Make sure they understand the scope of the fraud. I want this to be thorough. As night fell, Mark stood at his window, watching the city lights. In police custody, Ethan was probably confessing everything, hoping for leniency. Brenda was likely calling in favors, trying to salvage what remained of her career. Let them scramble. Let them plead. The evidence was ironclad, the trap perfectly laid. This was just the beginning of their fall. His phone buzzed one last time, a message from Emily, his sister. Are you sure about this? There's no going back. Mark's response was brief. They chose this path. Now they'll walk it to the end. Chapter 5, Brenda's Descent. The marble floors of Matthews and Partners echoed with Brenda's heels as she walked into the conference room. Her former clients sat around the table, their expressions ranging from disappointment to anger. Mrs. Chun, Thomas Matthews began. In light of recent events, we'll be terminating our contract with your firm. Brenda gripped her portfolio tighter. The allegations against me are unfounded. If you'll just let me explain, we've seen the evidence. Matthews slid a folder across the table. Bank transfers, altered marketing reports, misappropriated funds. Your husband was quite thorough in his documentation. Mark did this? Her voice cracked. He sent you these? No, Mrs. Chun. The SEC did. Matthews stood, signaling the end of the meeting. We'll be cooperating fully with their investigation. Outside, Brenda's Tesla was gone, repossessed that morning. She called a rideshare, watching as security escorted her boxes of personal items from the building. Her phone buzzed constantly, creditors, former clients, journalists seeking comment. She ignored them all, focusing on the one number that hadn't called, her lawyers. The ride to her apartment felt endless. The driver kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, clearly recognizing her from the news coverage. Her face had been everywhere lately, always accompanied by words like fraud and investigation. Her building's lobby was eerily quiet. The doorman, who had once greeted her warmly, now avoided eye contact. The elevator ride to her penthouse apartment gave her time to check her bank accounts, all frozen pending investigation. Inside her apartment, more boxes waited. The landlord's notice lay on top. Lease terminated due to violation of moral character clause. She poured herself a generous glass of wine, then opened her laptop. Her email inbox was a wasteland of terminated contracts and canceled meetings. At the top sat a message from Chloe. I tried to warn you. You didn't listen. Don't contact me again. A knock at the door made her freeze. Through the peephole, she saw Detective Miller. Mrs. Chun, he said when she opened the door, we have some follow-up questions about your marketing department's finances. I've told you everything I know. New evidence has come to light. Miller held up a USB drive. Your colleague, Mr. Parker, has been very cooperative. Brenda's hand tightened on her wine glass. Ethan talked? He gave us quite a detailed statement, particularly about certain overseas accounts. The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Miller watched her reaction with professional interest. We can do this here, he said, or down at the station. Your choice. In his office at InnovTech, Mark reviewed the police report with Mr. Harrison. Ethan confessed to everything and more. Harrison's smile was predatory. He's trying to save himself by throwing Brenda under the bus. Gave them details about accounts we didn't even know about. Mark's phone buzzed, a message from Sarah. Brenda's being questioned again. Want me to send in the rest of the evidence? Not yet. Mark turned to the window, watching as rain began to fall. Let's see what she tells them first. The interrogation room was cold. Brenda sat across from Detective Miller, her designer's suit wrinkled, her makeup smudged. Let's talk about these transfers, Miller said, spreading documents across the table. $500,000 moved through shell companies. Care to explain? That money was for marketing campaigns. Really? Miller held up a bank statement. Because it looks like it went to a private account in the Cayman Islands. An account registered to B. Chin Holdings. Brenda's lawyer touched her arm, warning her to stay silent. We have Mr. Parker's full confession, Miller continued. He claims this was your idea, that you orchestrated the whole scheme. He's lying. Brenda's voice shook. Ethan handled all the financial arrangements. I trusted him. Like your husband trusted you? The question hung in the air. Brenda felt tears threatening to fall, but held them back. She wouldn't give Mark the satisfaction. Back in her apartment, for the few days she had left before eviction, Brenda tried to salvage what remained of her life. Her phone rang. Her mother. How could you do this? Her mother demanded. Your father and I raised you better than this. Mom, please. Don't mom me. We've seen the news. The whole family has seen it. You threw away a good man for what? Money? Status? The call ended abruptly. Brenda stared at her reflection in the darkened window. Her perfectly curated life was crumbling, piece by piece. A text message lit up her phone. Mark, how's the job hunt going? Her fingers trembled as she typed, "You've won." Isn't that enough? His response was immediate. Won? This isn't a game, Brenda. This is consequences. Another message followed. There's still an entry-level position open in Innovtech's marketing department. Starting salary is $35,000. The phone slipped from her fingers. $35,000. Less than she spent on clothes last year. Less than her monthly mortgage payment. She grabbed her keys, determined to confront him. The drive to their old house, his house now, took 20 minutes. Mark opened the door before she could knock. Mrs. Chun. Looking for work. Stop this. She tried to push past him, but he didn't budge. You've destroyed everything. What more do you want? Want? His laugh was cold. I want you to understand what it feels like to lose everything. To have someone you trusted tear your life apart. I made a mistake. No. His voice cut through her excuses. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was a choice. Multiple choices. Made day after day, month after month. I'll take the job, she whispered, her pride finally breaking. No. Mark's smile was razor-sharp. That position's been filled. I just wanted you to ask. He closed the door in her face, leaving her standing in the rain. Through his security cameras, he watched her collapse against her car, shoulders shaking with sobs. David's voice came through his earpiece. The press release is ready. Want me to send it? Do it. Mark turned away from the cameras. Let's finish this. Chapter 6. Confrontation and Revelation. Detective Miller sat at his desk, reviewing the evidence against Mark Chun. Something didn't add up. The case against Ethan Parker was solid. Fraud, embezzlement, corporate espionage. The evidence against Brenda Chun was equally damning. But Mark's involvement nagged at him. Sir? His junior detective handed him a file. You need to see this. The file contained bank records, showing the exact timing of Mark's Innovtech acquisition. Everything was legal, but the precision of the timing. Give me a warrant, Miller ordered. I want to search his home office. Mark was expecting them. When the police arrived with their warrant, he welcomed them in with a cold smile. Detective Miller, Mark gestured to his office. I assume you have questions about the timing of my company acquisition? Miller's eyes narrowed. You knew we'd figure it out. I counted on it. Mark handed him a USB drive. This contains everything. How I discovered their affair, their fraud, everything. I didn't create the evidence, detective. I just made sure you found it. You orchestrated this whole thing. I revealed the truth. Nothing more. Mark's voice was steel. They committed the crimes. They made the choices. I simply removed their masks. Across town, Emily Chun paced in her apartment. Her brother had changed, become someone she barely recognized. The Mark she knew would never have gone this far. She picked up her phone, dialing Detective Miller's number. I need to tell you something about my brother. The detective listened as Emily detailed Mark's transformation, his obsession with revenge, his meticulous planning. He's not the victim here, she finished. He's become something worse. Miller added her statement to his growing file. The pieces were falling into place. Not enough to charge Mark with anything, but enough to understand the full picture. His phone rang, the prosecutor's office. Ethan Parker wanted to make a deal. In the interrogation room, Ethan sat with his lawyer, his designer suit replaced by prison orange. I'll tell you everything, he said. About the fraud, about Brenda, all of it. We already have your confession, Miller reminded him. You have what I told you before. There's more. Ethan leaned forward. Brenda was the mastermind. She'd done this before, at other companies. I was just her latest patsy. Miller recorded everything, watching as Ethan threw his lover under the bus to save himself. Brenda, meanwhile, had made a discovery of her own. Hidden in Ethan's personal laptop, which he'd foolishly left at her apartment, was a folder labeled Exit Strategy. Inside, she found emails, bank statements, and a detailed plan to embezzle company funds and flee the country. Her name was all over the documents, but she'd never seen them before. "You set me up," she whispered, reading through the emails. He was planning this from the start. Her hands shaking, she copied the files and drove to the police station. As she walked through the doors, she saw Ethan being led out in handcuffs. Their eyes met. In that moment, she saw the truth. There had never been any love, any real connection. She'd been a means to an end, just as she'd used Mark. Detective Miller welcomed her into his office. "Mrs. Chun, I assume you're here about Mr. Parker's latest statement?" She placed the laptop on his desk. "I'm here about who Ethan really is." Hours later, Miller sat in his office, the full picture finally clear. Mark Chun had orchestrated a masterful revenge, but he'd done it by simply revealing the truth. Every piece of evidence was real. Every crime had been committed. He just made sure they all came to light at precisely the right moment. His phone rang. Emily again. "Detective, there's something else you should know. Something about my brother's inheritance." "The $10 million? "Yes. Our uncle. He left a letter with the money. It was about justice, about using wealth as a weapon against those who betray trust." Miller added this to his notes. The picture grew clearer still. In his home office, Mark received the call he'd been waiting for. "Mr. Chun," Detective Miller said, "we need to talk about your role in all this." "Of course." Mark's voice was calm. "Shall we meet at your office or mine?" The police station was quiet when Mark arrived. In one interrogation room, he could see Brenda, still in her designer clothes, mascara streaked with tears. In another, Ethan sat slumped in his prison jumpsuit. Miller led him to his office. "Your sister told us everything." "Did she?" Mark sat down, perfectly composed. "And what exactly did she tell you?" "About your uncle's letter. About how you planned this whole thing." "I planned nothing, detective. I simply allowed the truth to emerge." Mark's smile was cold. "They destroyed themselves. I just made sure there was nowhere to hide." "You framed Ethan for the security breach." "No. He actually did access those servers. He actually did try to steal company data. I just made sure his digital signature was clear and undeniable." "And Brenda's embezzlement?" "She set up those accounts. She moved that money. I simply ensured the transactions were traceable." Miller leaned back in his chair. "Why come clean now?" "Because it's finished." Mark stood up. "They've lost everything. Their jobs, their reputations, their freedom. Justice has been served." "This wasn't justice," Miller said. "This was revenge." "Is there a difference?" Mark walked to the door. "They chose their paths, detective. I simply illuminated where those paths led." As he left the police station, Mark saw Brenda being led to a cell. She looked broken, defeated. Their eyes met for a moment. "You've become a monster," she whispered as he passed. "No, Brenda." His voice was ice. "You wanted a monster? Here he is." He walked out into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of 2 lives. His phone buzzed. "Emily." "I had to tell them," she said. "You went too far." "No, sister." Mark's voice softened slightly. "I went exactly far enough." The media coverage the next day was brutal. Corporate power play ends in arrests. Marketing executive charged with fraud. Innovtech scandal claims 2 more. Mark read each headline with satisfaction. David and Sarah had done their jobs perfectly, leaking information at just the right moments, creating a media narrative that painted the full picture of betrayal and justice. Detective Miller's final report sat on his desk, a masterpiece of understatement. No charges against Mark Chun. Everything he'd done was technically legal. He'd simply revealed the truth at the most devastating possible moment. The sun set on the end of Act 2, casting long shadows over the ruins of lives carefully destroyed. In his office, Mark raised a glass to his uncle's portrait. "You were right," he said softly. "Power isn't about money. It's about the will to use it." His phone buzzed one last time, a message from Mr. Harrison. "It's done. They'll both serve time." Mark deleted the message without responding. The web had tightened, the prey was caught, and justice, his version of it, had been served. Chapter 7. The Price of Revenge. Mark sat in the defendant's box, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the institutional grays of the courtroom. The judge's gavel echoed through the chamber as the proceedings began. "Mr. Chun, The prosecutor addressed him. You arranged the systematic destruction of two people's lives. How do you plead? Not guilty. Mark's voice carried across the silent courtroom. I merely exposed their crimes. The trial had drawn media attention from across the country. Reporters filled the gallery, their pens scratching against notepads as the prosecutor laid out the case. The defendant used his position and wealth to orchestrate a campaign of revenge, the prosecutor continued. He manipulated evidence, staged incriminating situations. Objection, Mark's lawyer interrupted. The prosecution has no evidence that my client fabricated anything. All evidence presented was genuine. Sustained, the judge ruled. In the witness box, David Wu shifted uncomfortably under cross-examination. Yes, I helped monitor their communications, but we only tracked what was already there. We didn't create anything, and the security breach Mr. Parker was accused of, he accessed those servers on his own. I just made sure the logs were clear and undeniable. Sarah Chun took the stand next. Her testimony was professional, detached. My surveillance was standard procedure for corporate security. Everything I documented actually happened. The prosecution's case began to unravel. Each piece of evidence they challenged proved genuine. Each witness they called only confirmed the legitimate nature of Mark's actions. Emily sat in the gallery, watching her brother. She thought her testimony would help bring him down, show the world what he'd become. Instead, it had only highlighted how perfectly he'd orchestrated his revenge within the bounds of the law. During a recess, she approached him in the courthouse corridor. Mark, this isn't what Uncle James would have wanted. You didn't know him, Emily. Mark's voice was cold. His letter was very specific about justice and betrayal. This isn't justice. This is destruction. There's no difference. He turned away from her. You chose your side, sister. Live with it. Back in the courtroom, Detective Miller testified about his investigation. We found no evidence of fabrication. The defendant exposed real crimes using legal methods. But the timing? The prosecutor pressed. The coordinated release of information? Suspicious but not illegal. Mr. Chin used his resources to uncover truth, not create lies. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Mark sat through it all, unmoved by testimony about Brenda's financial ruin or Ethan's psychological breakdown in prison. When the verdict came, it was unanimous. Not guilty on all charges. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed him. Mr. Chun, do you regret your actions? I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. His voice carried across the crowd. Everything else was just consequences. Emily watched from the courthouse steps as her brother walked to his car, reporters trailing behind him. She pulled out her phone, dialing Detective Miller. You were right, she said. He planned it all perfectly. Too perfectly. That's what makes him dangerous, Miller replied. He turned the law into a weapon. In his cell, Ethan Parker received news of Mark's acquittal. The former sales executive had aged years and months, his confident swagger replaced by nervous tension. His lawyer visited that afternoon. They denied your appeal. The fraud charges stand. But Chin orchestrated everything. He orchestrated the discovery, not the crimes. The lawyer packed his briefcase. You did commit fraud. You did cook the books. You just made sure you couldn't hide it. Across town, in the women's correctional facility, Brenda sat in the prison library. Her designer clothes were replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her manicured nails cut short. The guard brought her a newspaper. Mark's acquittal made the front page, along with a quote, "Justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth." She crumpled the paper, remembering their last conversation in the courtroom. She tried to apologize, to explain. He'd looked through her as if she didn't exist. Mr. Harrison visited Mark in his office after the verdict. The appeals court upheld both convictions. 5 years for him, 3 for her. Good. Mark signed the last document transferring Innovtech to new ownership. What about the civil suits? They'll lose everything. Your uncle would be proud. No. Mark stood, walking to the window. He'd understand. There's a difference. The media coverage continued for weeks. Legal experts debated the case. Psychologists analyzed Mark's transformation. Business journals wrote about the corporate takeover angles. Through it all, Mark remained silent, letting his actions speak for themselves. He destroyed 2 lives without breaking a single law, turned justice into an instrument of revenge. Emily made one last attempt to reach him. She came to his house, the home he'd stripped of all traces of Brenda. "You've lost yourself," she said when he opened the door. "No, sister. I found myself." He stepped back. "The weak man you knew? He died the night Brenda walked out. This is who I am now." "And who is that?" "A man who destroys lives for revenge. A man who ensures consequences find those who deserve them." He closed the door, leaving her on the doorstep. Inside, Mark opened his safe, removing his uncle's pocket watch and letter. The old man's words remained clear. Power isn't about money. It's about the will to use it to right wrongs. His phone buzzed. Detective Miller. "It's over, Chun. You won." "No, Detective." Mark's voice held no triumph. There was never anything to win, only justice to serve. Chapter 8. Aftershocks. The transition from revenge to aftermath began quietly. Mark sold Innovtech to a technology conglomerate, his mission there complete. Brenda's new life took shape in prison. She traded marketing strategies for counseling sessions, designer suits for group therapy. Her therapist, Dr. Roberts, saw through her defenses. "You're not here because of Mark. You're here because of your choices. He destroyed everything." "No." Dr. Roberts leaned forward. "He exposed what you were already doing. There's a difference." In the men's prison, Ethan faced his own demons. His cellmate, a former CEO convicted of fraud, recognized the pattern. "You thought you were smarter than everyone," the man said. "That's what got you caught." "Chin set me up?" "No, you set yourself up. He just made sure you couldn't escape the consequences." Sarah visited Mark at his new office, where he was reviewing plans for low-income housing developments. "Quite a change from corporate takeovers," she observed. "The revenge is done." Mark signed the construction permits. "This is about building something new, something good to balance the destruction?" "No." He looked up at her. "Something meaningful to follow justice." Emily watched her brother's transformation from afar. The newspapers covered his charitable works, but she saw them differently. "He's trying to wash away the blood," she told Detective Miller over coffee. "Or he's moving on," Miller suggested. Revenge consumed him. Maybe this is who he really is. The mark it left on him, on all of them, it doesn't wash away. In the prison library, Brenda discovered writing. Her first attempts were angry, bitter screeds about betrayal and revenge. Dr. Roberts read them all. "You're still blaming others. When will you look at your own choices?" Slowly, painfully, Brenda began to write her truth. The story of ambition gone wrong, of using people as stepping stones, of the price paid for betrayal. The manuscript grew, page by page, into something raw and honest. She wrote about Mark, about Ethan, about herself. The prison writing program director read it first. "This is powerful. People need to hear this story." "It's not finished," Brenda said. "Stories like this never are." Ethan's imprisonment followed a different path. He retreated into himself, avoiding contact, declining interviews. His lawyer brought news of the outside world. Chen's building affordable housing now, using his fortune to help others. "He's manipulating his image," Ethan spat. "Like he manipulated everything else. Or maybe he's done with revenge. Maybe you should be too." Mark's new projects drew attention from different quarters. Charitable foundations sought his involvement. Social justice organizations requested his support. Mr. Harrison reviewed the proposals. "You're becoming quite the philanthropist." "I'm becoming what I choose to be." Mark approved another housing project. Just like they chose their paths, Emily saw her brother at a charity gala. He was speaking to a group about prison reform, about rehabilitation and second chances. "Do you believe in redemption now?" she asked him afterward. "I believe in choice." He straightened his tie. "They chose destruction. I'm choosing construction. And forgiveness? That's not my responsibility." He walked away, leaving her question unanswered. Detective Miller kept tabs on all of them. His case files told the story of justice and revenge, of choices and consequences. A junior detective asked him about it. Was Chin right? Was this justice? Justice, revenge, consequences. Miller closed the file. Sometimes the lines blur. Chapter 9, Legacy. Time passed, marking its own form of justice. Brenda's book, written in prison, found a publisher. Betrayal, a memoir of consequences, hit bestseller lists. Critics praised its unflinching honesty, its exploration of ambition and morality. She didn't send Mark a copy. He bought one anyway, reading it in his study late at night. Her words filled the pages. I chose ambition over loyalty, desire over commitment. The price was everything I had, everything I was. The book tour followed her release. Reformed Criminal tells all. She donated the proceeds to charity. Another choice, another consequence. Ethan emerged from prison changed. No more designer suits, no more swagger. He took a job at a small company, keeping his head down. His parole officer noted the transformation. Some men break in prison. Others learn. I learned, Ethan said quietly. I learned about pride and fall. Mark's affordable housing projects spread across the city. Modern buildings rising from neglected neighborhoods, offering homes to families in need. Emily visited one of the sites. Children played in new playgrounds while parents tended community gardens. Maybe this is his redemption, she told Detective Miller. Or his evolution. Miller watched a family move into their new home. From destruction to creation, the years marked their changes. Brenda's book became a cautionary tale in business schools. Ethan's story was a case study in corporate fraud. Mark's legacy took a different shape. Buildings that housed families, programs that helped communities, changes that mattered. They crossed paths occasionally at charity events or public functions. No words were exchanged, no acknowledgments made. The final meeting came unexpectedly. Mark found Brenda waiting outside his office one evening. I'm not here for forgiveness, she said. Good. He held the door open. Why are you here? To understand. All this, she gestured at the plans for new community centers. Is this redemption? No. He sat behind his desk. This is choice. Like your choices, like Ethan's choices. You destroyed us. You destroyed yourselves. I just made sure you couldn't hide from it. She left his office understanding finally. Not forgiveness, not redemption, but consequence. Pure, inescapable consequence. Emily asked him about it later. Will you ever let it go? I already have. He showed her plans for a new project. This isn't about them anymore. This is about what comes next. Detective Miller retired, passing the files to a new generation. His successor asked about the case that defined his career. Chen's revenge wasn't about destruction, Miller explained. It was about truth. Brutal, uncompromising truth. The city changed around them. Mark's buildings rose, offering hope to families who needed it. Brenda's book touched lives she'd never meet. Ethan's quiet redemption played out in small acts of honesty. The final chapter wrote itself in choices. Mark chose creation over destruction. Brenda chose truth over pretense. Ethan chose humility over pride. Emily saw her brother one last time at their uncle's grave. He placed a pocket watch on the headstone. Was it worth it? She asked. It wasn't about worth. He stepped back. It was about justice. Clean, cold justice. The watch remained on the grave, marking time's own revenge. The old man's letter, framed in Mark's office, had the last word. Power serves justice. Justice serves truth. Truth serves consequence. All else is choice. They all lived with their choices. Mark built his legacy in steel and concrete. Brenda wrote her truth in words that would outlast her. Ethan found his peace in simple honesty. The story ended as it began, with choices and consequences, justice and truth. No forgiveness, no reconciliation, just the pure mathematics of cause and effect. Mark looked out over his city one last time. Buildings he'd built reached toward the sky, each one a choice, each one a consequence. Not revenge anymore, not destruction, just the truth he'd forced them all to face, himself included. The monster Brenda accused him of becoming had evolved into something else. Not better, not worse, just different. A force for change, for consequence, for truth. The end wrote itself in choices made and prices paid. No shadows remained, no debts unpaid. Just truth cold and clean and final. Justice served at last. Epilogue, 10 years later. The Chin Foundation headquarters dominated the city skyline, its modern architecture a testament to Mark Chin's evolution from revenge to legacy. Inside his top-floor office, Mark reviewed the latest reports from his affordable housing projects while CNN played silently on a wall-mounted screen. A notification popped up on his computer. Brenda's latest book had just hit the New York Times bestseller list. After the fall, Rebuilding from Rock Bottom marked her third successful publication since her release from prison. Mark opened Amazon, reading the synopsis without expression. Unlike her first memoir, this one focused on helping others avoid the pitfalls of unchecked ambition. The reviews praised its practical insights and unflinching honesty. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. Chun, Detective Miller is here. Send him in?" Mark closed the browser. Miller had aged well in retirement, though his hair had gone completely gray. He carried a familiar file, the one that had documented Mark's revenge all those years ago. "Still keeping tabs on me?" Mark gestured for him to sit. "Old habits." Miller placed a file on the desk. "Just finished training a new batch of detectives. Used your case as a study in legal revenge. And what did they learn? That the law can be a weapon sharper than any blade." Miller leaned back. "Saw Ethan Parker last week." Mark's eyebrow raised slightly. "How's my former employee?" "Running a small accounting firm in Minnesota. Specializes in fraud prevention, ironically. He teaches companies how to spot the kind of schemes he used to run. Redemption through confession." Mark's voice held no emotion. "And Brenda? You know exactly how she's doing. Your foundation just approved funding for her prison rehabilitation program. The program has merit. Her involvement is irrelevant." Miller studied the man before him. 10 years had added distinguished silver to Mark's temples, but his eyes remained the same, calculating, unforgiving. "Your sister asks about you," Miller said. "Emily made her choice." Mark stood, walking to the window. "She chose to testify against me. She chose truth. Like you did." "No, I chose justice. There's a difference." The view from his office showcased the results of that choice. Chin Foundation housing projects dotted the landscape, providing homes for thousands. Community centers, job training facilities, rehabilitation programs, all bearing the Chun name. "You've built quite a legacy," Miller observed. "Legacy is just another word for consequence." Mark turned back to his desk. "Speaking of which, how's David? Your former hacker? Running cybersecurity for a Fortune 500 company. Still won't touch anything borderline illegal. Says one brush with revenge was enough." Mark's phone buzzed, a message from Sarah Chun, who had stayed on as his head of security. "Brenda's publisher is requesting a meeting." "No," he typed back. Miller watched the exchange. "She's not the same person who betrayed you. No one stays the same. That's not the point." "Then what is?" "Consequences don't require change. They simply are." The conversation was interrupted by Mark's assistant. "Sir, the board meeting for the new rehabilitation center starts in 10 minutes. "Thank you, Jessica." Mark gathered his papers. "Coming to the opening ceremony next month, detective? Wouldn't miss it. Quite a guest list, governor, mayor, business leaders. And Brenda, giving the keynote speech about rehabilitation." Miller's surprise must have shown on his face. "Don't misunderstand," Mark said. "I approve her as speaker because she's qualified. Her experience serves the foundation's mission. Nothing more. After all these years, you still won't forgive her." "Forgiveness isn't part of consequence." Mark checked his watch. "The program helps people rebuild their lives. Her participation is statistically beneficial. That's all." As they walked to the boardroom, they passed a wall of photos showing Chun Foundation projects. Communities transformed, lives rebuilt, second chances granted, except for 2 people. "You know," Miller said, "some would say you're doing penance. Some would be wrong." Mark's voice was firm. "This isn't about redemption. It's about choice. I chose to build instead of destroy. Simple math." The boardroom filled with executives and project managers. On the screen, architectural plans displayed the new rehabilitation center, a modern facility designed to help ex-convicts transition back to society. "Mr. Chun," one of the board members began, "the publicity around Mrs. Chin's involvement is irrelevant to our mission." Mark cut in. "Focus on the program's metrics." After the meeting, Miller lingered. Heard from Chloe lately? Brenda's former friend? Mark shook his head. She runs a successful PR firm now. Occasionally consults for the foundation. And Sarah? Still the best security chief in the business. She understood consequence from the beginning. Mark's phone buzzed again. Emily. After 10 years, she still tried to reach out monthly. He deleted the message without reading it. She's still your sister, Miller said. Biology isn't choice. Mark returned to his office. She chose her side during the trial. The afternoon brought another meeting, this time with the foundation's legal team. They reviewed proposals for new projects, including one that caught Mark's attention. A program teaching corporate ethics to business students. Using real-world cases, the lawyer explained. Including mine, Mark nodded. Approve it. Later, alone in his office, Mark opened his safe. His uncle's pocket watch and letter remained, untouched for years. The paper had yellowed, but the words remained clear. A notification popped up. Brenda was being interviewed on CNBC about her new book. Mark turned up the volume. Your latest book focuses on prevention, the host said. Teaching others to avoid the mistakes you made. We all make choices, Brenda replied. Her appearance had changed. Simpler clothes, less makeup, but her poise remained. The key is understanding their consequences before it's too late. And your ex-husband? Mark Chen has become quite the philanthropist. The Chen Foundation does excellent work. Her diplomatic answer revealed years of practice. Their rehabilitation programs are industry-leading. Mark muted the TV. His phone showed another message, this time from Ethan's lawyer. The former sales executive was requesting permission to use his story in corporate training sessions. Approved, Mark replied. Standard non-disclosure agreements apply. Evening found him reviewing applications for the Foundation's scholarship program. One caught his eye, a young woman whose mother was incarcerated for corporate fraud. Like mother, like daughter? Miller's voice came from the doorway. No. Mark set the application aside. She's choosing a different path. The Foundation will help, and if she makes the same mistakes, then she'll face the same consequences. That's how justice works. Miller sat down uninvited. After all these years, I still can't decide if you're the hero or villain of this story. There are no heroes. Mark closed the application file. Only choices and consequences. And the Foundation? All this good work is a choice. Like their choices. Like my choice to expose them. But you've helped thousands. Changed lives. Given second chances. Numbers don't erase consequences, detective. They just add to the equation. As night fell over the city, Mark stood at his window. Below, a Chen Foundation van delivered supplies to a homeless shelter. Across town, lights burned in the Foundation's job training centers. Tomorrow, more lives would be changed. His phone buzzed one final time, a message from Mr. Harrison, now retired but still watching. 10 years, Mark. Maybe it's time? Time doesn't change truth, he typed back. The next morning brought news that Ethan's fraud prevention program had won a national award. The press release mentioned his own crimes, his imprisonment, his change. Brenda's publisher tried again, requesting Mark's participation in a charity event. Both their names would draw attention, increase donations. The Foundation will match all contributions, he replied. I will not attend. Emily made one last attempt. Brother, after 10 years... His response was the same as always, silence. At the Rehabilitation Center's opening ceremony the following month, Mark stood at the podium. Cameras flashed as he announced the Foundation's latest initiative, a nationwide program combining housing, job training, and psychological support. Brenda gave her speech next, never looking in his direction. Her words were powerful, honest, earned through hard experience. The audience was moved. They passed each other afterward, close enough to speak. Neither did. Still, Miller asked later. Always. Mark straightened his tie. Consequences don't expire. The day ended with a board meeting. New projects, new budgets, new lives to change. Mark reviewed each proposal. The Foundation's work, a board member observed, it's changing the narrative about you. Narratives are irrelevant. Results matter. 10 years had transformed them all. Brenda, from ambitious executive to advocate for reform. Ethan, from fraudulent salesman to fraud prevention expert. Emily, from loving sister to estranged family. And Mark? From revenge to reconstruction, from destruction to development. But never to forgiveness. Never to forget. His uncle's letter, framed on his office wall, had the final word: power serves justice. Justice serves truth. Truth serves consequence. Below it, Mark had added his own line: consequence serves choice. The Chun Foundation continued its work, changing lives, offering chances. Mark Chun continued his path, building legacy from revenge's ashes. Brenda wrote her books, taught her lessons, helped others avoid her fate. Ethan trained corporations, preventing the frauds he once committed. They all moved forward, carried by time's current. Changed but not forgiven. Transformed but not excused. In his office each evening, Mark reviewed the day's work. Numbers showed lives improved, communities transformed, opportunities created. But 2 files remained in his safe, untouched, unchanged. 2 betrayals preserved in paper and evidence. 2 consequences, permanent as stone. The city grew around them, marked by Chun Foundation buildings reaching skyward. Each one a choice, each one a consequence. Legacy wrote itself in steel and stone, in changed lives and second chances. But never in forgiveness. Never in forget. Time passed, marking decades instead of years. The story remained, taught in business schools, dissected in ethics classes. A tale of betrayal and revenge, transformed into a foundation of change. But never erasure. Never redemption. Mark Chen's legacy grew, measured in lives improved and communities transformed. But 2 lives remained marked, 2 betrayals unforgiven. Consequence pure as mathematics. Choice clear as dawn. Justice served forever in silence between 3 people who chose their paths and paid their prices. The end wrote itself in steel and stone, in books and programs, in silence and consequence.